Hello and welcome. Today, we're about to embark on an exciting adventure, diving into the life of one of the most notorious pirates in history, Blackbeard. In this story, we'll explore his rise to power, his reign of terror, and the ultimate battle that led to his downfall. As you listen, you'll not only experience an unforgettable tale, but you'll also learn new English words and phrases that will help you along the way. So, sit back, relax, and prepare for a journey into the heart of piracy. Blackbeard, whose real name was Edward Teach, became a feared name across the seas. His dark, menacing presence struck fear into the hearts of sailors, and his ruthless tactics made him one of the most dangerous men to ever sail the oceans. His story is filled with mystery, danger, and ambition, showing just how far a man will go to claim power. Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, was born in Bristol, England, around 1690. Little is known about his early life, but it is believed that he joined a crew of privateers during the War of Spanish Succession, where he quickly gained a reputation for his skill and cunning. After the war ended, many privateers turned to piracy, and Teach was no different. It was during this time that he adopted the name Blackbeard, a moniker that would come to symbolize terror on the high seas. By the time he commanded his own ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, Blackbeard had become a fearsome pirate captain. The ship, a former French slave ship that Blackbeard had captured and outfitted with 40 guns, was a formidable force. With it, he terrorized the coastlines of the American colonies and the West Indies. His crew was loyal, and his tactics were brutal. He would often board ships with his men, striking fear into their hearts by tying slow-burning fuses into his long beard and lighting them during battles. The smoke would surround his face, creating an image of a demonic figure, and it was said that his appearance alone was enough to make even the bravest of men surrender. Blackbeard's raids were swift and violent, and he amassed a fortune through stolen goods, gold, and ships. However, his desire for even more power and riches would eventually lead him to a fateful clash with the British Navy. It was not just his wealth that made Blackbeard infamous. It was his utter disregard for authority and his ability to command fear, which allowed him to rule the seas with an iron fist. Blackbeard's reign of terror continued for several years, but by 1718, the British government had had enough. The governor of North Carolina, Charles Eden, had secretly made a deal with Blackbeard, offering him amnesty in exchange for his stopping piracy. However, Blackbeard's thirst for power and his growing reputation as an unstoppable pirate made this deal a fleeting illusion. He continued his plunder, growing bolder with each passing raid. As Blackbeard's actions became more audacious, the British Navy took notice. A determined officer named Lieutenant Robert Maynard was sent to put an end to Blackbeard's reign. Maynard, a veteran of the Navy, was well aware of the pirate's cunning and ruthlessness. He gathered a crew and set sail to track down Blackbeard, determined to bring him to justice. In November of 1718, Maynard finally cornered Blackbeard off the coast of North Carolina. The two ships, the Queen Anne's Revenge and the HMS Scarborough, faced off, and the battle began. Blackbeard's ship was larger, but Maynard was determined to win. He knew that this would be a fight to the death, and he had prepared for it. Blackbeard, however, was not an ordinary pirate. He had the upper hand in battle tactics and was not afraid to face his enemies head-on. The battle raged for hours. Cannon fire exploded, and the two ships exchanged fire from a distance. But Blackbeard was not simply fighting for survival. He was fighting for his legacy, and he knew this could be his final stand. His crew fought fiercely, but the British sailors, trained and disciplined, had the advantage. Blackbeard, seeing his crew begin to falter, made a daring move. He ordered his men to board the HMS Scarborough, leading the charge himself. With his sword raised high, Blackbeard fought with a ferocity that seemed unstoppable. He hacked his way through the British sailors, his eyes burning with fury. But even Blackbeard's legendary reputation could not protect him from the tide of battle. The sound of cannon fire echoed across the waters, a booming reminder that Blackbeard's life was teetering on the edge. The battle between the Queen Anne's Revenge and the HMS Scarborough was reaching its violent climax, and the pirate king, once invincible in his terror, was now fighting for his very survival. The Queen Anne's Revenge rocked violently as another round of cannonballs hit, splintering the ship's wooden hull. Below deck, the men scrambled to repair the damage, blood staining the planks as the chaos escalated. The air was thick with smoke, the smell of gunpowder mixing with salt and fear. Blackbeard stood at the bow of his ship, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword, his eyes locked onto Captain Maynard's ship ahead. He had fought battles before, but this one felt different. There was no escaping this. The British Navy had him trapped. The fog had lifted, and there was no turning back. "We can't hold them off much longer," Steed shouted, his voice frantic as he tried to rally the crew. His face was smudged with soot, his clothes torn from the battle. "We need to retreat, or we'll be overwhelmed." But Blackbeard's gaze never wavered. "We're not retreating," he growled. "This is the fight that will define us. Fight until your last breath." His men, loyal to him to the end, rallied to his command. Cannon fire rained down on them, splashing water onto the deck. But Blackbeard's crew pushed forward, fighting with the fury of desperate men. They would not go down without a fight. Suddenly, from the smoke and chaos, Blackbeard spotted Captain Maynard, standing on the quarterdeck of the HMS Scarborough, barking orders to his men. The sight of his enemy, so close yet so far, filled Blackbeard with a cold fire. He had known this moment was inevitable, but now that it had come, he could almost taste the bitter sweetness of revenge. With a roar, the Blackbeard jumped from the bow, Blackbeard's landing sword on the deck of the Scarborough with a resounding ring. His strike was a battle of wills, cutting enemy sailors as if they were nothing more than shadows. Fought with all his crew followed a man who had built an British ship in a frenzy of blood. But Maynard was no slouch. "Come face me, His movements were precise, Blackbeard shouted, calculated. His voice he knew cutting Blackbeard was a dangerous man. He didn't wait for a response, and he was determined to end this. His men were already fighting, and he had no time to waste. Continued their deadly Captain Maynard appeared from behind his officers, feel his strength, his face calm to wane, and focused despite the bruises on his body ached. "You're a fool, the smoke from the cannons made it harder to breathe. You've pushed too far." But he refused to give in. Your reign. His men were counting on him. Sent a chill down the pirate's reign could not end but here. But he couldn't afford not to on show the deck fear. Of a British warship. "I'm no fool." With a roar, spat, Blackbeard his voice dripping with contempt. "I'm the pirate coming down in a powerful arc, and I'll take you down just as I've taken down every other fool who dared challenge me." In that moment of vulnerability, his eyes narrowing as he prepared for the inevitable duel. The two men locked chest, a silent but as the sword closed in on its target, both knew that only one would walk away from this confrontation. With surprising agility, twisted out of the way, leaving Blackbeard off balance. In a flash, the British captain slashed his sword across Blackbeard's side, a sharp cut that drew blood. Blackbeard staggered, his breath coming in ragged gasps. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of his mortality press against him. He had faced countless dangers, but none had ever felt so real, so final. He looked down at the blood staining his coat, the wound painful but not fatal. Yet the thought lingered, this could be the end. But Blackbeard was not done. He gritted his teeth, his rage fueling his next move. With a roar, he lunged once more, this time with a wild, desperate fury. Maynard barely had time to react before Blackbeard's blade found its mark. The sword plunged deep into Maynard's shoulder, sending him sprawling backward in pain. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Maynard, grimacing in pain, staggered to his feet, his eyes meeting Blackbeard's. The pirate could see the fear in the man's eyes now, the realization that he had come face to face with his own mortality. But just as Blackbeard moved to deliver the final blow, a gunshot rang out from the rear of the ship. The shot struck Blackbeard in the chest. His body froze. The pain was sharp, immediate, but it was the realization that it was over, the end of his reign, that hit him hardest. His knees buckled, and he fell to the deck with a heavy thud. The world around him seemed to spin as the life drained from his body. His men, seeing their captain fall, hesitated for a moment before the British sailors rushed in, securing the pirate king once and for all. Blackbeard had never known fear until now, but even as the darkness crept over him, his last thought was not of defeat. It was of his legacy, of the terror he had inspired in the hearts of those who dared challenge him. He had lived as a pirate, and he would die as one. Fierce, unyielding and unforgettable. The sea grew quiet, the echoes of battle fading into the distance as the Queen Anne's Revenge lay abandoned, its sails tattered, its deck littered with the fallen. Blackbeard, the pirate who had ruled the Caribbean with terror and might, was no more. His death at the hands of Captain Maynard and the British Navy marked the end of an era, one that had seen a man rise from humble beginnings to become a legend whose name would echo through history. In the days that followed, the HMS Scarborough and the British Navy scoured the seas, determined to eliminate any remnants of Blackbeard's crew. His men, leaderless and broken, were either captured or forced to flee. Some were hung for piracy, others disappeared into the shadows, their once feared reputation now reduced to whispers. Captain Maynard, victorious but wounded, returned to England as a hero, his name now forever linked to the downfall of Blackbeard. Yet, even as the British Empire celebrated its triumph, the legacy of Blackbeard endured. His reign had been short-lived, but the terror he inspired would never be forgotten. His story was one of defiance, of living by his own rules, and of facing death with the same fury that had fueled his rise to power. In the end, Blackbeard's journey was one of ambition, ruthlessness, and survival. His lust for power had driven him to unimaginable heights, but it was also the very thing that led to his downfall. The lesson, perhaps, was that no matter how powerful one becomes, there is always someone, or something, waiting to bring them down. The tides of fortune are fickle, and even the most feared pirate in history could not escape their pull. As for the crew of the Queen Anne's Revenge, their fate was sealed with Blackbeard's death. The Pirate King had been their guiding force, and without him, they were left to scatter. Some would try to forge new lives, others would return to piracy, but none would ever command the fear and respect that Blackbeard had. His story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that power, no matter how great, is fleeting. It was the story of a man who lived for the thrill of the chase, the hunger for wealth, and the need to carve his name into history, only to find that in the end, it was his own reckless ambition that led to his demise. The tale of Blackbeard is one of adventure, ambition, and the high cost of seeking power without compromise. From his legendary battles to his untimely end, Blackbeard's journey teaches us the importance of understanding the consequences of our choices and the fleeting nature of power. We've seen how his hunger for control ultimately led to his downfall, leaving behind a legacy that lives on through history. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey through the life of Blackbeard. We hope you've enjoyed the story and that you've learned some new English words along the way. Feel free to share your thoughts and feedback in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.